So, are you guys ready to bitch and complain about my opinion about the most disappointing movie of the year? Because a lot of people did like this movie really, really much. Really? Great! I hope you guys give me some really juicy material for responding to Stupid Ass Comments Volume 3.
And the #1 movie that disappointed me the most in 2012 is The Dark Knight Rises.
Now I figured the best way to talk about my disdain for this colossal meltdown is by getting all sequelitis on this bitch. Now before we go any further, I'd like to address someone in particular. Ego Raptor. If for some highly unlikely reason that you're watching this video, I just want to make it clear to you. I think you're an absolutely fantastic entertainer and cartoonist, and I hold you in the absolute highest respect. So, please be awesome by not suing me. Oh, by the way, where the fuck is Pokey Awesome 2? You've been parading that around, but nothing has ever come up. Give Game Grumps a break. Go back to your cartoons, man. As we here in the South have a saying, tighten your ass up with that shit. Great. Now that we got the obligatory ass kissing out of the way, let's tear this film a new asshole. Actually, in the spirit of fairness, there are some shining spots in The Dark Knight Rises. So, first things first. Here's what they did right.
#1, Catwoman. Catwoman was easily the best character in the movie. She was slick, she was sexy, she was engaging, she was badass. This was one of the only things in the movie that gave me some sort of quality entertainment out of it. Which is all the more unfortunate when you see that she's overutilized. Nearly every single key point in the story is either directly or indirectly caused by Catwoman. She does almost all the work that Batman was supposed to do. As much as I enjoyed her, she had too much of the workload for what was supposed to be a Batman movie. #2, Bane. Bane may have been a little cartoony, especially during his big speeches, and he tries a little too hard to fill in the void the Joker left. But the thing I liked about Bane was that he was a villain that got shit done. He made it to Gotham, destroyed Bruce Wayne's fortune, beat the ever-loving Christ out of Batman and exiled him, raided his armory, rose up, buried the entire police force in the tunnels, took shit over, turning Gotham into an anarchist hellhole. So for the most part, Bane actually succeeded with his evil plan. Something you almost never see with villains, period. Which is why it pissed me the fuck off in which the second Bane is revealed not to be the mastermind of the Gotham occupation, he literally becomes cannon fodder and is just disposed of like a half-eaten, perfectly good chicken wing.
I was expecting something a bit more cinematically filling with Bane's demise, but nope. Okay, he's dead, moving on.
#3, the music. Well, if there's one thing that remains constantly good throughout The Dark Knight Rises, it's the soundtrack. I love Hans Zimmer. I think he's one of the greatest movie composers who's ever lived, and he delivers another amazing score here. Some tracks that particularly stand out were Catwoman's theme, the track called Why Do We Fall, Bane's theme, and the music that played during the final trailer. The music is without a doubt the most redeeming quality in the film. Too bad most of the other parts didn't measure up. So here's what they did wrong. #4, where the fuck is Batman? This was the biggest problem I had with the movie. Batman is a secondary character in his own goddamn film. I'm not talking about Bruce Wayne here, I'm talking about his alter ego we all paid to see. I mean, in Batman Begins, it was understandable that he didn't become the Batman until almost halfway through because it was the origin story and showed his journey into becoming the Dark Knight. Speaking of which, The Dark Knight kinda had the same problem as this, but it was relatively minor in comparison and the overall story and characters were more engaging. But it's drastically more apparent here. As I recall, there are only 4 parts in the entire fucking movie where Bruce actually suits up and goes out as Batman. The first time, 45 minutes in, where he chases Bane and his goons throughout Gotham's highways. The part where he meets Catwoman and brawls with the same thugs he was chasing. So technically, that's really 1 part put together. The scene where he teams up with Catwoman in the sewers, where she betrays him and gets put out of commission by Bane. And finally, an hour later, where he gets back to Gotham and rises to save the day. And this is the most time he spends in the movie as Batman.
To me, that's just unacceptable. And I haven't even mentioned how incompetent Batman is in this movie. But if I went into detail about that, this video would be as long as the actual movie itself, so fuck it, moving on.
Number 5. Too many characters we don't care about, and a lot of the ones we do care for are barely in the movie at all. Remember the scene where Alfred opens up to Bruce about how scared he is for him? About how he doesn't want him to be Batman anymore and that it would end up killing him? That scene was emotional, it was powerful, it was great. But then we discovered that that's the last scene Alfred is in right up until the end. What the fuck? Commissioner Gordon and Lucius Fox are also pushed to the sidelines for who, you may ask? Some schmuck who I think works for Bruce but is actually working for Bane. Matthew Modine playing a deputy or a lieutenant. I don't even remember their names, and I don't care for them in the slightest when they were killed off. Then there's John Blake, or as Razorfist put it, I can't believe it's not Nightwing. I'm sorry, people, but I didn't like him either. Which is unfortunate because I do like Joseph Gordon-Levitt as an actor on the whole, but he didn't do it for me this time. He just seemed too one-dimensional to me as the rookie cop who isn't very accustomed to the rules. Also, how the hell did he already know that Bruce Wayne was Batman? But then again, I guess you could ask, how did people not find out that Bruce was Batman, considering how reckless he was and that he and Batman just happened to show up at the same time? Another thing, I hated Levitt's, I think it was Boston accent, but now I'm just being nitpicky. Then there's Marion Cotillard's character, Miranda Tate, who I already knew was actually Talia al Ghul simply because of how similar they looked. So the big reveal that she was the actual villain I saw coming from a mile away. The worst part about this is that these are extremely talented actors who were either underutilized or given just bad roles and missed the target completely. Number 6. The action. A ton of people went absolutely gaga over the fight scene with Batman and Bane in the sewer. I thought it was clunky, contrived, and poorly choreographed. These two were both in the League of Shadows, trained in various martial arts by the deadliest assassins in the world, and when these two masters of pugilism finally meet, they just discard all they learned and just wail on each other like someone was playing a bad fighting game. I was actually laughing, it was so bad.
Now before you guys get on my ass about the action, typing in, well, Nolan's Batman is supposed to be grounded in realism, so the fighting and the action scenes had to look as realistic as possible. I know that shit, but there's no reason for two masters of martial arts to, actually utilize their martial arts training instead of just going,
Then there was the epic final battle between the Gotham police and Bane's thugs. And how does this play out? By having all the cops march in a narrow street, maybe armed with pistols and nightsticks, and they're going up against an army of deranged convicts and murderers armed with military-grade rifles, machine guns, rocket launchers, and tanks. So instead of utilizing a conservative strategy, like any decent tactician, they just charge full force into the fire, and instead the thugs just being able to easily mow them down, they just decide not to utilize the military arsenal that they acquired and just fight the cops with their fists. This is the same time that Batman and Bane meet up for round 2 and commence the final showdown. You would think that Batman would try something different to try to defeat Bane, especially with his newfound strength, but nope! They just do the same clunky, contrived fisticuffs as they did before.
There's no reason not to add cinematic flair to realism. Yeah, it's going to be harder work for the filmmakers, but nothing good ever came easy.
Number 7. Plot holes galore. Why did the authorities think that the plane crash at the beginning happened by accident when the wings were torn off over 100 miles away from the rest of the wreckage? Why did Alfred give Selina Kyle, a complete stranger to him, the keys to Bruce's chamber without any company or supervision? Why did Gordon not throw away his speech with the truth about Harvey Dent and take it with him later on when he was chasing the criminal through the sewer? How did Blake know which drainage output Gordon was going to end up in? How come Bruce decided to put on a bionic leg brace 8 years after he wants to become Batman again, and saying it will dramatically increase his leg strength but never use it all throughout the entire movie? How come Catwoman's long-ass unguarded black hair never gets scattered throughout any of the crime scenes? How does she not get caught with that shit? How come Batman is supposed to be the world's greatest detective with the most advanced technology in the world but doesn't utilize it to locate Bane or any of his henchmen? How come all it takes to heal a broken back is a bunch of push-ups hanging from a rote and ancient medicinal practices that not even modern science can't fix yet? How the fuck did Bruce get all the way from Istanbul to Gotham in less than 12 hours with no money, ID, or transportation? How did Gordon not even suffer a scratch when Batman crushed a 20-ton truck with Gordon in the back completely unsecured? If Batman is so against killing, how come he didn't have a problem killing Talia and the driver of the truck carrying the bomb? How come none of Bruce's friends and acquaintances other than Blake put 2 and 2 together and figure out that he was Batman with the torrent of coincidences that followed them? Why wasn't Gotham blown to smithereens even when Batman tried to fly it out of the city when it was clearly established that the bomb had a 6-mile blast radius with an even wider radiation cloud? And lastly, how in the immutable fuck did Batman escape from a nuclear fucking blast when it was shown that he was still in the cockpit of the Batwing seconds before it went off? Jesus! Number 8. The movie thinks you're a fucking idiot. There were a lot of times in the movie where it thinks that people don't have a thought process beyond that of a 10-year-old with ADHD. The characters go on speaking and spouting out exposition like normal, but then take a break to simplify it to the audience in case they didn't catch it.
Mr. Nolan, if I may, not everyone is stupid, okay? You don't have to stoop down to the lowest level in order to pander to those few people, okay? If someone missed a line of dialogue or a plot point, more often than not, it's their own damn fault. So just fuck them, leave them in the dust, and maybe they'll catch up later. Or better yet, if they're watching the movie at home, they'll probably just rewind it so they can catch it and understand it, okay? Besides, it's not like your movie had that complex of a plot anyway, okay? So just keep that in mind next time. But you probably won't.
Number 9. The ending. Holy shit, I hated the ending. Aside from the massive plot holes about the nuke I've already mentioned, but the last 5 minutes were just the biggest kick to the balls I've experienced in the movies in a while. It's been established that Batman/Bruce is dead, so they decide to wrap everything up with Bruce's will, giving away his mansion to Gotham's orphans, giving what's left of his money to Alfred to blow on trips to Italy, and giving Blake coordinates to the Batcave. Here it's revealed that Blake's real name is Robin.
Okay, people, I have a confession to make. I am not well versed in the Batman universe. Honestly, I really don't know shit when it comes to comic book movies in general. But even I knew that Robin's real name wasn't Robin. Okay? I even did some research to confirm that. That was just incredibly bad writing.
So anyway, Robin discovers the Batcave, stumbles onto a platform which proceeds to rise from the water.
Symbolism!
And then Alfred just conveniently discovers that Bruce is alive and well, miraculously escaping from a nuclear blast seconds before it went off. And it turns out he's banging Selina too. And they all live happily ever after. Top it all up with probably the most unsatisfying closing line of dialogue in a blockbuster trilogy ever. We can't leave a string of pearls in the manifest as lost. Really? Really? That's your send-off. Compare that to the closing lines in Batman Begins.
I never said thank you. And you'll never have to.
That was awesome. And I don't even need to tell you about Gordon's speech in the ending to The Dark Knight, because almost everyone knows about that. So, when you compare those to we can't leave a string of pearls in the manifest as lost, what the fuck, Nolan? Now I know it's supposed to mean that either Bruce and or Selina took his mother's pearl necklace, which would signify that they're fine, but would it have killed the writers to close out the Dark Knight trilogy with something a bit more, you know, conclusive?
I've got a headache. I've spent way too much time talking about this abysmal disappointment. This is, without a doubt, Christopher Nolan's worst movie so far. Now before all you fanboys pelt me with fire and brimstone in the comments section, let me just make something perfectly clear. For the most part, I like Nolan. He's not the filmmaking messiah that hipsters make him out to be, but up until this most recent one, I liked all of his movies. Batman Begins and Insomnia? Good. The Dark Knight and Inception? Great. Memento and The Prestige? Fan-fucking-tastic. So don't get your panties in a wad. Every single director has at least one bad movie in them. And The Dark Knight Rises was Nolan's. And now, unfortunately, this trilogy that I have will remain incomplete. So that's it. The films that disappointed me the most in 2012. Next time, I'll wrap up my trinity of movie-related countdowns with my absolute favorites of the last year. Until then, I'm PMRants, and I thought The Dark Knight Rises sucked. Flame Shield, activate.